All right, so you're ready to explore how partnerships can really make a difference in education.
Especially when it comes to quality physical education.
But you want more than just the surface level stuff.
You want to know what makes these partnerships work?
And more importantly, how they can last.
We're diving deep into a case study from the Latrobe Valley in Australia.
It's a fascinating story about how a whole network of partners came together to revamp physical education.
Specifically for primary school kids.
We'll be dissecting a chapter called Context of Partnerships by T. Lynch.
This chapter doesn't just talk about what these partnerships are,
It really digs into the
how to make them tick.
and more importantly, how to make them sustainable.
The Best Start program in the Latrobe Valley is a perfect example
We're going to unpack how this network came together.
to change physical education.
And what's really interesting is that this all happened against the backdrop of a major curriculum reform in Australia.
Yeah, Australia was in the midst of a big push for a future's perspective in health.
With a strong emphasis on the social and cultural influences on well-being,
And they were also pushing to raise the bar for teacher education.
especially for those just starting out.
It was like they were saying we need teachers who can put their knowledge into practice.
Teachers who can adapt to the needs of their students
And that's where partnerships come in.
instead of just focusing on theory.
This program gave pre-service teachers hands-on experience
Yeah, we're working with kids
from prep all the way to year 6.
involved in teaching swimming lessons
Modified games.
and even sports sessions.
Right. And it wasn't just about the practical side of things.
Did this emphasis on hands-on experience mean they were sacrificing a solid theoretical foundation?
Is there some kind of trade-off happening here?
That's a really important question.
The chapter doesn't go into detail about the specific curriculum itself,
Okay.
but it does mention a report,
From the Teacher Education Ministerial Advisory Group,
or TMAG.
right?
And this report specifically recommended that there should be integrated professional experiences throughout teacher training.
So it sounds like this program was in line with those national goals.
Yeah, instead of being stuck in a lecture hall,
These pre-service teachers were out in the community.
gaining skills and confidence.
So let's talk about the partners themselves.
It wasn't just schools, right?
No, not at all.
This Best Start program was a real mix of people.
A real coalition.
You had universities,
School.
Australian registered training organizations,
Uh,
RTOs, the local health industry,
Education departments.
and even a university course from the UK.
Wow, a real mix of perspectives.
That's a lot of people to coordinate.
I imagine that must come with its own challenges.
Oh, for sure.
Did they manage to not step on each other's toes?
Well, Lynch acknowledges that partnerships are rarely easy.
Right.
He talks about the need to overcome obstacles,
Sometimes you evade them.
evade them.
While he doesn't give specifics about what hurdles they faced,
It's easy to imagine the complexities.
trying to align schedules
You're
and navigate all those different organizational cultures.
Yeah, it's tough.
So it wasn't all perfect,
Not at all.
but I'm guessing the benefits outweigh the challenges.
Yeah, for sure.
This program was addressing a real need.
Think about it. This is rural Australia.
Right.
Resources are limited.
Yeah.
Schools struggle to even provide basic aquatic activities.
It's easy to forget about those kinds of things
So this program stepped in,
to fill that gap.
and they weren't just throwing resources at the problem.
Right.
They were creating a lasting solution.
By training the next generation of teachers.
So they would be equipped to handle these challenges.
Yeah. Talk about killing two birds with one stone.
More like creating a whole flock of birds.
The pre-service teachers weren't the only ones who benefited.
So many of the kids in these programs.
They came from disadvantaged backgrounds.
And they got access to swimming lessons,
Sports programs,
modified games.
things they might not have otherwise had.
Exactly.
So we're starting to see these benefits.
For everyone involved,
But I'm curious about the long-term impact.
did this program actually change the way physical education is delivered?
In these communities.
That's a key question.
Yeah.
And one we'll dig into further.
Okay.
But before we do,
Okay.
I think it's worth looking at a couple of specific success stories.
From this program,
These examples will really show the outcomes,
of these partnerships.
the tangible outcomes.
All right, let's hear about them.
What were some of the standout initiatives that came out of this collaboration?
I'm ready.
Let's start with the Swimming and Water Safety Partnership.
Okay.
It might seem like a no-brainer, teaching kids how to swim.
Right.
But this is rural Australia we're talking about.
Right.
Lots of schools struggle to even offer basic aquatic activity.
Yeah, it's easy to take swimming lessons for granted.
Exactly.
But for these kids, it's a big deal.
Right.
Life-saving skills.
Yeah, and this program really addressed multiple needs.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, the pre-service teachers, as part of their qualification, needed a swimming and water safety certificate.
Right.
And of course, the local kids needed to learn to swim,
Yeah.
and rural schools needed support.
Makes sense.
So this partnership really brought all those pieces together.
So it wasn't just a feel-good project.
Yeah.
They were being strategic.
Yeah, they were solving a real problem.
Not just a temporary fix.
Right.
They were building up the capacity of the community.
Exactly. And the chapter even mentions this discussion paper on tertiary education in the Gippsland region.
Okay.
And it talks about how important it is to make sure education aligns with the needs of local industry.
Okay.
This swimming partnership is a perfect example of that.
Right.
It's about creating a sustainable future.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a second.
Okay?
Let's talk about the kids.
Right.
We know that they were getting these great opportunities.
Yeah.
But what was the impact on their well-being?
Did it go beyond just learning how to swim or play a sport? This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The chapter cites this Sport Wales School survey,
Okay.
which involved over 110,000 children.
Wow, that's a lot of kids.
And what they found was that enjoyment, confidence, and feeling listened to were so important for these kids to really engage in physical activity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? If kids feel like their opinions matter,
Yeah.
they're more likely to buy into it.
It's not just about forcing them to run laps.
Exactly. And get this.
Okay.
The study found that the children who felt like their ideas about PE were listened to
Okay.
were 9 times more likely to report really enjoying it.
Wow. 9 times more likely.
That's a huge difference.
That's amazing.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If you create an environment where kids feel respected,
Yeah.
they're going to thrive.
But was this just a one-time finding?
Is this a fluke?
Or did other research kind of back this up?
Well, the chapter also references Lynch's own doctoral study, which specifically looked at the impact of quality physical education on Australian primary school kids.
Okay.
And guess what?
What?
They found that children in high-quality programs
Okay.
reported increased enjoyment,
Yep.
better skill development, improved stress management,
Wow.
and even better academic performance in other subjects.
So it wasn't just about physical health. It was
Right.
like a ripple effect
Right.
across their entire well-being.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
But let's get back to the Best Start program.
Okay.
What about the Friday Sports Initiative?
Oh, yeah.
This one seemed really popular.
This was all about giving those year 5 and 6 students agency.
Okay.
They got to choose a sport that they were interested in
Okay.
and then participate in it every week for 5 weeks.
Okay, so they got to do something they enjoyed.
Yeah, it wasn't about forcing them to do stuff.
It was tapping into their passions.
Exactly.
So instead of just being told what to do,
Right.
they had a voice.
They had a say.
But were there any downsides to this?
Was it too chaotic?
Was it too unstructured?
Well, they used something called the sports education model,
Okay.
which does emphasize student choice,
Right.
but it still focuses on developing competent,
Okay.
literate,
Okay.
and enthusiastic sports people.
So there was a framework.
There was a method to the madness.
It wasn't just letting the kids run wild.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a balance of structure and freedom.
Right.
But how did the pre-service teachers fit into all this?
Were they just observing?
Or were they actively involved in leading these sessions?
They were right in the middle of it.
Okay.
They were using this model to teach the kids.
So they got to put theory into practice?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity.
To develop their teaching skills.
And gain confidence working with different age groups.
And different sports.
Right.
So it was a win-win.
The kids got a quality sports experience.
And the pre-service teachers got valuable hands-on training.
Exactly.
This Friday sports thing really seemed to hit the mark.
It did.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
No program is perfect.
Right.
What were some of the challenges they ran into?
Well, Lynch points out that partnerships just naturally involve some complexities.
Right.
He doesn't go into detail about the specific hurdles for the Best Start program,
Okay.
but it's safe to say that there were some bumps in the road.
I can imagine.
Just imagine trying to get all those schedules aligned.
Right.
The universities, the schools, the RTOs, the local health industry.
Yeah, that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Right.
And then there's funding.
Yeah, these things aren't cheap.
How did they manage to get the money?
Well, unfortunately, the chapter doesn't really talk about the funding,
Okay.
but it does highlight a really important point.
Okay, what's that?
Sustainability.
Right.
If these partnerships are going to last,
Yeah.
they need solid financial footing.
Makes sense.
You can't build a house on sand.
Right.
But I'm curious about something else.
Okay.
Lynch talks about overcoming obstacles
Yeah.
and even evading them.
Evading them.
What does he mean by evading challenges?
Is he just saying that they swept the problems under the rug?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's about being strategic,
Oh.
picking your battles.
Right.
Sometimes it's better to find a workaround,
Okay.
reframe the challenge,
Yeah.
focus on the areas where you have more control.
So being flexible
Right, being adaptable.
and not getting bogged down in conflict.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's not lose sight of the big picture.
What are we really trying to do?
What were the long-term effects of the program?
Did it actually change how physical education was delivered?
Yeah. In these communities?
That's what we need to
Right.
figure out.
Right.
But before we do,
Okay.
I think we need to think about the context that this program started in.
Okay.
Remember, Australia was in the middle of a big curriculum reform,
Yeah.
a big focus on social and cultural influences.
On health and well-being.
Right.
So it wasn't just about teaching kids how to throw a ball.
Right.
It was about
Yeah.
something bigger.
It was a more holistic view.
Of health and well-being.
Right.
Recognizing all these different factors.
Physical, social, emotional, even environmental.
It's all connected.
Exactly.
Right.
And the Best Start program brought this new curriculum to life
Through partnerships.
by bringing all those people together.
Right.
The program made a learning environment.
That reflected this new way of thinking about health.
It wasn't just about checking boxes.
Or meeting some requirement.
It was about something more meaningful.
For everyone.
For the teachers and the kids,
It's an inspiring story.
it shows the power of working together
To make real change.
and to create a better approach to health and well-being.
But this program was in rural Australia.
Right.
Could this model be used somewhere else?
In an urban area?
Or even a different country?
That's a great question.
It is.
And that's what we're going to talk about in the last part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We're going to look at the lessons from Best Start
Okay.
and see if they can be applied to other places.
Okay, so stay tuned. We've been talking about this Best Start program.
And how it addressed these challenges in rural Australia.
But could this model work somewhere else?
Yeah. Could these lessons be used in different situations?
Maybe even in our listeners' own community.
That's the big question.
It is.
While this program was designed for rural schools,
Right.
I think the underlying principles are universal.
Okay.
You know, that emphasis on partnerships,
Yeah.
hands-on learning,
Right.
community engagement.
These are all important.
They're relevant no matter where you are.
But wouldn't we need the same kind of national curriculum reform?
To make this work somewhere else?
We can't all just expect a report to fall into our laps.
That's true.
right.
But that doesn't mean we have to wait for someone else to make the changes.
Okay.
The great thing about this model is that it can be adapted.
Okay.
You can change it to fit different situations.
Okay.
It starts with figuring out the needs and challenges.
In your own commutes.
And then finding creative ways to use the resources you already have
Right.
and to build partnerships.
So we're not talking about just copying and pasting the Best Start program.
No, not exactly.
It's more about taking those core principles.
And making them work for you.
Right.
That swimming partnership.
Yeah.
Maybe access to a pool isn't a problem in a city,
Right.
but there might be other challenges.
Like what?
Maybe there aren't enough qualified instructors.
Okay.
Or maybe there's no funding for programs.
Right. So the principle of working together to meet a need,
That stays the same.
but the specific needs and solutions.
They'll be different depending on where you are.
Exactly. And it's not just about schools and universities.
No.
Remember, the Best Start program involved all kinds of people.
Health organizations, sports clubs, local businesses, families, volunteers.
Right. So it's about looking beyond traditional education.
Yeah, and realizing that everyone has a role to play.
In supporting kids.
Exactly, and that's where sustainability is so important.
That's what Lynch talked about.
These partnerships need to be connected to the community.
They have to reflect the values and priorities of the community.
Right, it can't just be something imposed from the outside.
Yeah, it has to come from within.
People need to feel like they own it,
They need to be invested,
and that takes time.
effort,
And a willingness to listen,
and to adapt.
but it's worth it.
Yeah. We saw how this program helped the kids.
But it also made the community stronger.
It's like planting a seed.
You give it what it needs,
You nurture it,
you give it time to grow,
and eventually it blossoms.
it becomes something beautiful.
And sustainable.
That's a great way to put it.
It is.
It reminds us that these partnerships take time.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
We're always learning,
Always adapted.
building relationships,
And sometimes it means being brave,
stepping outside our comfort zone,
trying new things.
embracing the messiness of collaboration.
Exactly. And it's okay to start small.
Right.
Even a small initiative can make a big difference.
Like connecting a sports club with a school.
Yeah, something like that.
You can create a ripple effect.
And lead to positive change.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners
What do we want them to remember?
from this deep dive?
I think it's this partnership can transform education.
But it's not a magic solution.
It takes hard work
Creativity.
and a willingness to go on the journey
So ask yourself what partnerships are possible.
in your own community
What seeds can you plant today?
to create a better future for kids tomorrow.
We hope this deep dive has given you some ideas.
And some inspiration.
Remember, every journey starts with a single step.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time,
Keep learning
keep exploring
and keep believing.
in the power of partnership.